Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, episode 171. We're a podcast that talks about pop culture things that interest us, and sometimes there's whiskey. My name is John, and I'm joined, as always, by Andrea. How's it going?
Hello. Just glad I could make it here.
Yep. Sliding into the internet home plate here.
Exactly. You get me.
Yep. And then tonight we also have Dustin coming back. How's it going, Dustin?
Ooh.
Good. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, you bet. I think you were on last for actually it wasn't too long ago, was it? What was it? Oh, Shogun.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I can never remember what I'm on the show for or when it happened.
So yeah, well, welcome back. Tonight we're going to be staying heavy in the Mad Max topic.
Mhm.
We'll be venturing into the wasteland. So be prepared. We'll really focus probably on Mad Max Fury Road and then the latest Furiosa, a Mad
Mhm.
Max saga. So we'll talk spoilers. So hopefully you've seen the films. If you haven't, you probably want to dip out when we start talking about Mad Max films.
Mhm.
Before that, we'll find out what our weeks have been like. It's been a minute since we've had this podcast, so we'll talk about that. See what we've been watching of note. But before all of that fun, even more fun with drink holidays.
Yeah, something probably pretty scarce in the resource challenged world of Mad Max.
Yeah.
But thankfully not for us. Yeah, so like you said, it's been a minute. So there are a couple of drink holidays to close out the second half of August. I cannot believe it is already September. Holy crap. And we'll get the start of those two in here. So yeah, so rolling all the way back to August 16th, it was National Rum Day. Cheers to you if that's your jam. I am definitely not usually a rum person, but on occasion for something special, we'll check that out in a cocktail. Something more straightforward, August 18th, Pinot Noir Day. Also shout out to Dana, that's her birthday. And the day we all went to Renfest together. Or no, the
Yeah.
day before. That's right.
Yeah.
But it was the day I went to Metallica. So
Yeah.
there were
Love
drinks there.
Nashville.
Um, August 25th, skipping ahead a week, was Whiskey Sour Day. A couple of days after that, again, National Red Wine Day. So, if you're not into Pinot Noir, you got another
Mhm.
chance with another general red wine. You also have another chance. The very next day, it is International Cabernet Sauvignon Day.
Would
So
it
for God's
not?
sake, find something.
Yeah.
Find
I
something
would
in the
just
red
try to
wine
separate
family.
these a bit, you know?
I know,
Yeah.
right? The two that aren't there are like a Shiraz and a Merlot, but really they should have just
Yeah,
thrown them
just
in
all
there.
the
Just been
reds.
like,
Yeah.
everybody gets one. No, instead August closes out with a left turn. It is Mai Tai Day on August 30th. So I don't know, we're kind of bookending rum, Mai Tai, little bit of like tropical cocktail
Sure.
kind of idea there. So
Yeah.
but if you're like me and you're excited for the start of September and the fall time, it is Bourbon Heritage Month, which I quite enjoy. Or, really, we just can't escape that red wine. It is California Wine Month. So find a red from California, maybe, if you want to get real specific.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Otherwise, again, kind of a random holiday that I think is maybe newer to the calendar because I don't remember it last year.
I don't remember this
Uh,
either, yeah.
yeah, September 1st is Australian Craft Gin Day.
Oh,
And I was not aware that, Australia was of note for their craft gin. I apologize if there's like a whole movement going on that I don't know about, but it's on the
Yeah.
calendar now. So get celebrating.
Maybe there has become a movement, and that's why this is
Indeed.
new 'cause, how many
Indeed.
years will we have to do this before we just have the list memorized? And then, yeah,
Right.
anytime there's a brand new one, it's like, "Whoa, what the heck? New
What
drink
is
holiday."
this? I mean,
Yeah.
I already feel like we're kind of at the start here because I'm like,
Yeah.
I definitely do not remember this one. This is too specific to forget. So,
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, lots of choices. Are you
mhm.
partaking in any of them? Any of them?
I I am. I almost went for red wine, but that felt a little easy. So I went for another classic favorite of mine, which is the whiskey sour. So
Okay.
cheers.
nice.
Nice. Yeah. Cheers. Dustin, do you have any sort of drink or any of these holidays like scream to you? Oh, I should be celebrating.
Oh, I definitely went for the easiest one, and
I
I got
love it.
some
I
red
love it.
wine.
Keeping it simple.
I'm gonna say that I totally planned it, but I did not.
You had so many chances, so you were bound to get
I
some.
know it just lined up. This is the month to have all the possibles.
Mhm. You have a red Dementis wine. That's your
Yes,
Yes, there you
yeah.
go.
his own personal stash. Tastes
Mhm.
terrible.
Well, yeah, I Ashley brought me home today like a lemonade thing from
Ooh.
Arby's. It's like a peach lemonade, and
Yes.
I put gin in it. So I do not have Australian gin
Oh,
Oh, that
because
would have
as
been too
like you,
good.
yeah, I have Irish gin, I have Minnesota gin, I
Mhm.
have London gin, several kinds of that, but
Yeah,
yes,
now I'm
Australian,
curious and I'm gonna have to go look up this whole Australian craft gin scene, see what it's all about.
right? I feel like a lot of times our exposure or understanding of a culture's, you know, drinks or food or whatever, it can be really hindered by what's distributed here. Even though it's like a
Yeah.
worldwide market that we have, like there's still what are the things that this country would enjoy of ours or
Mhm.
whatever. And sometimes it's pretty limited, and I'm sure it costs a lot of money to explore that, whatever the case may
Mhm.
be. Because it's always like, oh, Australia has Foster's beer.
Right.
That's what they have, I'm sure there's more than that. There's gotta be. Please God, there's more the beer in Australia than Foster's. So
Right.
what is it? That's fine, but yeah.
I can say I definitely was not thinking that Australia's drink would be gin, of all things.
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like, the natural choice. Although, I mean, thinking in my Victorian scholar kind of lens, I mean, it was part of the British Empire, and yeah, England's
Yeah.
known for, so I don't know. I'm retrofitting here. I'm really reaching
Mhm.
to make this fit together, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
Juniper, perfect climate for juniper. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Well, drinks out of the way. Yes, everybody enjoy your drinks. If anyone watching is enjoying drinks, let us know what you have. Let's talk about what we've been watching, new or old,
Mhm.
something we've been into, something enjoying, whatever. Dustin, we'll start with you. What any new
Ooh.
shows you really been into, or something you revisited, or
Yeah, I've been kind of going back through things on my like screenplay writing journey of like trying to just study good things. So I kind of had some time to sit down this last week with the kids away at grandparents.
Nice.
And I watched some of Billy Wilder's films because he's been known to be like one of the all-time great writer directors who just kicked out hit after hit. It sounded like so. I watched Sunset Boulevard, which was one of
Mm.
his very big ones. It was awesome. Um, I watched Stalag 17 and Sabrina. Um,
Mm.
and they were all very well done, and I'm not even, huge into like romantic comedies, but um, it was very intriguing, and yeah, that's
Sabrina, I
okay.
know, but what was the second one? Dialogue 17?
Dialogue 17.
What
Yes,
is that?
starring William Holden. I think he got some award for it. I don't know if it was a Oscar or an
Uh-huh.
Emmy, um,
Oh.
but it was about prisoners in World War II. Um, After a failed escape, they start suspecting that someone might be uh, a planted like German spy within the barracks. So they have to try
Oh.
and figure out who is the tattletale.
That sounds pretty intense.
It was, but it's strange because they also injected like a lot of comedy into it. Um, so
Okay.
it was like half and half, where it was like you get the good kind of like drama and interesting, but then you'd have very like almost absurd like comedy moments.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it's hard to imagine mining some comedic material out of that.
yeah,
I'm thinking some sort of weird twist on like Hogan's Heroes or something because
yeah,
again,
that's
it's not like a natural choice for comedy, but somehow they
exactly,
kind of made it work when it was slapsticky enough.
and that's really my only reference to anything like that is Hogan's
Sure.
Heroes. Like I
Sure.
watched that for sure, and it did have that kind of feeling where like
Okay.
the German general, or I don't know if he was a general, but the guy in charge of the barracks or
Sure.
whatever was kind of like buddy buddy with everybody. Um, he wouldn't
Mhm.
be, against anybody if he wasn't on the opposite side.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, it was interesting, and it was um it was good to watch just to kind of see like what went for like award winning kind of stuff
Mm.
back then, because
Yeah.
these are all like movies back in the 50s where it's just like
Mhm.
never thought that I would go back and there was a point in time when I thought anything that wasn't in color was was way too old and wasn't good.
Sure.
Right.
But now I'm starting to realize, like, because of all of the limitations with like the code of things they could and couldn't show and stuff like that, um, they were way more creative with how they had to present their ideas to certain things.
Sure.
And so, where nowadays, if you have some kind of disturbing or violent thing happen in a movie, like, you usually see it all and it's all just as disturbing, but uh, in those times it'd be something that they would have to like allude to it in a clever way, and it got
Mhm.
you thinking more, and then you'd be like, oh, that's so smart. And I think anytime you can bring the audience in to participate in
Mhm.
unraveling the story, it's much more enjoyable of an experience.
Yeah, that
Sure.
sounds pretty cool.
I
Yeah,
see
so
you
I'd
did The
highly
Private Life
recommend.
of Sherlock Holmes. That
Ooh.
sounds fun.
Ooh.
With Christopher Lee.
Yeah, I was actually, that was the next on my list to check that out.
Oh,
He also did Some Like It Hot, which was
Yep.
great. I thought that was super funny. And The Apartment, which
Mhm.
is
Yep.
so well known that I think it's gotten a few remakes. Um, and Jack Lemmon worked with him a lot. So it was kind of fun to, because I only ever knew
mm,
him from Grumpy Old Men.
Right.
It's,
sure.
it's kind of funny to see like how huge of a career he had.
Mhm.
And then I only know him as a crotchety old man. So
It's literally like grandkids with their grandparents. Like you see them in this like narrow scope of like grandparents, and then suddenly like you find out about their life and you're like, you were like a young person. You had
yeah,
a job. Like, you had it's just like this whole like revelation of like, oh my God.
it
So
definitely
yeah, it's kind of
feels
fun
like
like that.
a whole world
Yes.
opens up that you just didn't
Yep.
really know existed.
Yeah, well, it
Yeah.
is a thing where I would always say that now, like unless there's some sort of miracle thing where we can extend our lives for however long, I really don't need anything new ever. New to me, but there's enough content out there,
Yeah.
movies, music, video games, books, that
Hmm.
they could not no one could come up with another new thing ever, and realistically have enough.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. You have more than enough.
So, yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's cool. I didn't expect that. I haven't seen any of these. So, I'm looking at a list of like 26 movies.
I
So,
highly
Yeah.
recommend Sunset Boulevard, The Apartment,
Mhm.
and Something Like It Hot was actually fantastic.
Mhm.
are they on
The
anything
last two are the
specific
ones
or did
I've
you like
seen.
rent them? Okay.
I bought a box set of three of them, but there are a few of them that are free on, I believe, Amazon or Hulu. There's
Sure.
some Like It Hot, Avanti, and the Sherlock Holmes one. And there might be one more, I think, that I haven't watched from his that are free out there.
Very nice. Well, anything else in particular? That seems like it take up quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean that took up a bit. I a couple weeks back watched Arcane again because that
Ah,
is
nice.
Oh,
just a brilliant show, and I know that they're coming out with season 2 soon. I think pretty soon. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought so.
that one is another one that I could watch over and over again, and you just discover more little details, and the scenes are written so well that just trying to learn anything I can from them.
Yeah. Cool. Andrea, how about you?
Uh, sorry, November 2nd is when Arcane season 2 comes out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I had
nice.
to look it up because I was like, I know it's coming. Such a good show. Yeah, so I've been doing some rewatching as well. I was flipping around, the televisions the other day and caught like Batman trilogy. I caught Dark Knight kind of a little bit into it, like enough that it was like I missed some of the beginning, but I was like, ah, it's fine. Like I'm at a good spot to like pick it up and go. Um, so then I just got so into it that I just decided I wanted to rewatch like the entire trilogy. So that's what I did. Which was fun. I hadn't seen those in, a hot minute. And it was really interesting. It kind of got me thinking about, you know, this series that we're about to discuss in a way because I was thinking about, the first one, Batman Begins, is like the origin story, and it really feels so different than Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises because of the like all the backstory and like all the setup that we need to do. Whereas like Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises can just really hit the ground running because we're already in it. And somehow just like it feels like such a separate film in a way. Like I
Mhm.
know it's part of the trilogy and it all like fits together, but just like even kind of like the coloring, the lighting, like the way things are used, the way that like technology and or a suit is different. It's just so early that everything feels entirely new. So then it kind of got me thinking about the way that like origin stories are told and the way that like we're going to discuss
Mhm.
Furiosa as an origin story. And if that, kind of like how that fits into the Mad Max uh world. But anyway, I'll save that for later, but it was it
Well,
was just like
I
an
wore
interesting
my
thought that I had.
I wore a Batman shirt, um,
Yeah.
just
Get
because
it.
I saw you, put that in here, so
Yes. Yes, I had a blast. I forgot how much fun that trilogy is in, like, a weird, dark way. Like, I
well,
mean,
so
the
how
the
does
humor is there, and it's, like, dark humor, and Morgan Freeman is just, like, chef's kiss as Lucius Fox, and his, like, dry wit
Mhm.
is amazing.
How does I mean, I think everybody generally agrees that The Dark Knight holds up. People
Yeah.
I mean, that
Hell
film,
yeah.
is not influential just in the superhero kind of genre, but I just think in, like, our generation of pop culture,
Mhm.
the way that the Joker or scenarios in there are referenced, it's just like that one comes up.
Mhm.
I think that, I think the line is it in Begins though? Are you or is it in I think it's in The Dark Knight. It's, you live long enough to you die a hero or live long enough to see
That's
yourself become the villain.
that's Dark Knight, yeah, that's right at the end there.
Yeah. So people are, I like it's just it's a well done film. It's
Mhm.
a classic now at this point. It's gonna live on. How does as an origin story in a regular movie, whatever, how do you think Batman Begins holds up and stacks up? Because that's the one I've been meaning to go back and watch because I've rewatched
Yeah.
The Dark Knight Rises last year when I was like
Mhm.
rocking kids to sleep and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it was a little more juvenile. It was a little, less well done than maybe had quite remembered, but it was still good. It was still solid. It's like it's like, a B plus, and then you
okay.
suddenly like leap to an A plus with Dark Knight. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
Nolan made a really good film. It's just when you watch it next to The Dark Knight, you're like, oh, I can see where you were just like figuring some things out.
Hmm.
Not that it's
Mhm.
bad or, like anything is glaring or obvious. It's just like not quite as good. And it's a little like a freshman. It is a very like freshman effort.
What do you think, Dustin? You agree? Have you seen them at all recently?
Uh, I went back and watched them when after I'd watched the Robert Pattinson one, and I
Mhm.
still
Yeah.
love them. Um, I Batman Begins always has a place in my heart, just because it was
Mhm.
kinda like the first. I'd always been a fan of Batman, but it was the first kind of like superhero film that I think really like hooked me and kept me in
Mhm.
there. So I feel like Dark Knight for sure was elevated, And some of that is because of the tragedy of Heath Ledger and like how it
Yeah.
kind of like
It's
built
hard to
this
separate that.
legend of this
Mhm.
character. But yeah, it was like, he was kind of really finding who he was as a director, I feel like, and like he cut his teeth on that and then realized what he probably would have done differently and then nailed it the second time around.
Mhm.
And then I still don't think that, as much as I like parts of the third one, feel like it didn't really end the trilogy on a high note. I feel like that's the weakest of all the films. Um, but I like the idea that he went for. It just there's just some parts about the climax of that film that I felt like was a little anti-Batman, of just brawling in the
Yeah.
streets. But
Yep. It was
I think
anti-Batman. I agree.
that's what he was kind of going for as well, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I mean, we could spend an entire episode on
Yeah,
the Dark Trilogy for sure. Um,
Shove us
which
back
we
on
should do,
course,
by the
John.
way. I say, which we should do, by the way. We should do that
Yeah.
sometime, actually, because that sounds great. But yeah, I was curious because I think there's some things about Batman Begins that kind of over time have raised up a little bit. So, but
Sure.
yeah, let's do that sometime. Yeah,
Absolutely. Sometime that is not this time, we will definitely talk Nolan's Batman trilogy.
right.
Yeah, just to like go through some of the other things I've been watching that are newer. Amazon Prime has a show called My Lady Jane, which is a reimagining of the 9-day rule of Lady Jane Grey following Henry VIII after his death. There was definitely some chaos there and some like odd succession attempts. And there was like a little bit of
Mm.
a coup to get Lady Jane Grey on the throne, and then she lost her head 9 days later. And this show kind of imagines like what would have happened if she lived.
Mm,
So it's very fun. It's very tongue in cheek, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely like lots of liberties with history here, but it was great fun. I thought Amazon made something original and witty, very clever, great casting. And it doesn't sound like, unfortunately, there will be a season 2. They're not budgeting for that because I don't know. The cynical me says they're just funneling all their money into Rings of Power, you sons of bees. But realistically, I'm sure somebody somewhere made like some financial decision that has nothing to do with that. But um,
I don't know.
yeah,
They have their
it's
person that's in charge of their shows. Whatever. It's
I mean, yeah. Whoever made the decision, I'm sure the two aren't related. I'm just being, salty about it. But check out season 1. It is very good. I would highly recommend it if you're kind of in a dark humor mood with a little bit of history and romance thrown in. I watched some middle episodes of My Happy Marriage on Netflix. I'd watched episodes 1 through 3 a long, long time ago, and I don't remember why I paused, but I just like I think forgot to come back to it. So now I'm trying to finish that series because that is getting really good. I watched the first season of Discovery of Witches, based on a book trilogy by Deborah Harkness. Netflix now got all 3 seasons of that. And now I'm just about to head into season 2 where they time travel back to Elizabethan England. So I'm apparently very much about the English past right now.
yeah,
And then yeah, took a hard turn into the future and watched Fury Road and Furiosa. So
nice.
yeah, from the Elizabethan and Tudor Regency era to post-apocalyptic wasteland of Australia. I'm all over the map,
Cool.
just like our drink holidays.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I watched The Bike Riders, which I was
Yeah,
another
how
Tom
was
Hardy
that?
thing.
I was really interested in that movie.
I was hoping it would be better.
Okay,
Like is all around enjoyable. I just wasn't like wowed. So,
sure.
um, but got to see Austin Butler in another thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, Minority Report. I've been meaning to
Mm,
rewatch that one for a long time.
yeah.
Honestly, I haven't seen a Spielberg movie in quite a while. watching some Tom Cruise stuff recently, and that's one of those I wanted to rewatch. It definitely still holds up. Um,
Mhm.
it's it I now seeing watching it now, it feels like he was trying to go for what can I do in my like kind of own modern Blade Runner film. Um,
Mhm.
you just see some more of those things in there.
Yeah.
Um, some of the way light pours through windows. It just I don't know. I saw a lot more than I did when I was saw it as a kid, and it was kind of surprisingly dark for me as a kid.
Mm.
Um, but and it's this weird thing too, where there's like tons of extra light poured into things. Like it's a very bright film, very
Mhm.
overexposed film. So it's
Yeah.
like trying to sell this idea visually of a bright, optimistic future, but underneath it, it's like, hey, there's do we want to be here? Is this look at the kind of stuff that's going on? It makes it feel a little more unsettling, maybe I think.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Minority Report. I recommend the rewatch on that. Um, I went back and watched an older film as well, like you did, Dustin. I watched Blood and Black Lace. So I kind of going through my queue of like things in like my Shutter kind of list for our horror group, and we ended up watching this one. It's an Italian horror film, and so I guess back
Okay.
then, what was common was actors would just speak in their native language. So there wasn't like an official like sub or like dubbing of it. Cause I'm like, maybe I kind of just want to read this then, or just watch it with subtitles. I'm sure that exists, but there's sort of
Interesting.
standard version is some people's mouths line up with what they're saying and others don't. And
Huh.
they just have other people put English over the top. So it's weird, but it's like this, yeah, Italian kind of horror genre of things, and so it's from 1964, and that was quite a bit of fun. It was a good film, so recommend it.
Yeah, it's got great ratings.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
The Mario Bava, the director, I guess, is known. Not
Uh-huh.
to me; it's all new to me, but yeah.
Sure.
And
Huh.
then I watched Argyle. So
Mm.
um
How's that?
I think I'd asked you, Andrea, and you hadn't seen any of the Kingsman movies,
No.
Matthew Vaughn's stuff. So this is Matthew Vaughn as well.
Mhm.
Did a movie for Apple. It's a very sort of meta thing. I was very into it. One off of Matthew Vaughn, but then two off of it's kind of inspired by Romancing the Stone. And
Is this the Bryce Dallas Howard and, Sam
yes,
Rockwell one? Okay, okay,
yes.
thank you. Yep.
Mhm. And It it's Romancing the Stone is about an author that's writing
Oh, yeah, I've
romance
watched that.
stories. Yeah, I love that movie. This
Yeah,
takes a
same.
kinda similar thing. They actually wrote a book now. So there's a author in the movie, and she writes spy novels. Those spy novels, they're actually writing. So you can buy
Yes.
and read the spy novel, but this is a movie that takes place around it. So
Okay.
it's a planned series and a planned book series. So,
Funny.
yeah, it's very meta, and,
Interesting.
if you are into the Matthew Vaughn Kingsman style of things, but with a more Romancing the Stone kind of twist, then I think you'll like Argyle.
Okay.
So it's absolutely zany and over the top and designed to be fun, but they pitch it as like a good date movie. So,
Mhm.
um, it
Interesting. This
It wasn't overly well received, and it didn't do well at the box office, but I think it
Sure,
released into streaming quickly with Apple.
sure.
So,
This kinda reminds me of, The Lost City, with,
yes.
Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum.
Mhm.
This gives me that kind of vibe as well. You know,
Yep.
like author and I'm sure in this case, like actual spy, I think is Rockwell's character, right? He's like supposed to be actually
I mean, I
whereas
don't
like
wanna
Channing Tatum was like the cover model for
correct. Yes.
Sandra
Right.
Bullock's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I
Yes.
think Sam Rockwell's character is supposed to actually, know what he's doing, whereas Channing Tatum's was like bumbling along, pretending to be an action hero. So yeah.
Yeah. I've I've liked Matthew Vaughn. His like he's done a lot of producing. I've been listening to him some. Like he did Tetris movie and Elton John movie for producing wise and stuff.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
going. Then he
Mhm.
he did directing for I think it was Stardust back in the day, and then
Yes. Oh, I love that
X-Men
film.
First Class, and
Mhm.
then the Kingsman movies. I guess he was got set up X-Men: The Last Stand, but then they said, "Well, okay, actually, Bryan Singer gets first dibs if he wants to direct it." So he said, "I'm out." He did Layer Cake and kind of discovered then
Mm,
Daniel Craig, and so
yeah.
people wanted him to do a Bond film, all this sort of thing, so, like, I don't know, he's been around and done cool things, and I've liked
Yeah.
every movie he's done that I've seen.
Mhm.
So, good
Yeah, he's more
director.
present than I realized.
Yeah, you just have to, go in this movie with right expectations, and then
Sure.
so it's
Okay.
on Apple TV Plus. So, um, yeah, that's the big stuff I'll point out, I guess, and then, of course, the Mad Max stuff. So, we should get into it. Um, Mad Max, Fury Road, and Furiosa. I thought we should well, first, let's talk about what of Mad Max you guys have seen, and then we'll get into Fury Road first. And then we'll move into Furiosa, and then whatever comparisons and contrasts and whatever we wanna do.
Mad
Fair?
Max. That is what
Okay.
I had seen before.
You'd seen the original Mad Max.
OG, yes.
Okay. Some time ago?
Yes, it's been a hot minute. Yes.
Okay. How about you, Dustin?
Uh, Fury Road was really my introduction.
Okay.
After Furiosa, I did get all excited and go back and try and watch the originals. I made it about 20 minutes, maybe less, into the first one, um, and stopped for some reason. But it wasn't. It just.
It's
Although
different.
I'm sure that it's got its place in history. Like there's a reason that it's so well known and spawned all this. But I felt like Fury Road and Furiosa is where his ideas finally came to full fruition. Like this is the world that he wanted to show
Mhm.
compared to the limitations that he had previously.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know if it still is, but it might be. For the longest time, Mad Max, the original, was the most profitable movie ever made
Wow.
because the budget was
That's
basically nothing,
cool.
Sure.
and it went on to make high bucks. So,
That's cool. I
yeah.
definitely want that to be true. That's awesome.
So by percentage or whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I never made it very far in the first Mad Max either. I just, for whatever reason, couldn't get into it. But the sequels, I will say, Mad Max 2, Road Warrior, and Mad Max 3, Thunderdome, I
Mhm.
actually think are very good. And
Okay.
I can totally see elements that were expanded upon in Fury Road and Furiosa then. Um, it's interesting to watch them and be like, "Oh, yeah, it if you watch them all back to back, some of it can feel kinda samey, it's like, "Oh, yeah, we did that. We
Mhm.
saw that kind of thing," or whatever. Um, but no, I and some people consider Road Warrior one of the best action movies ever made. I
Mhm.
think I actually like Mad Max 3 better. It's quite the
Thunderdome.
cast of characters, yeah. Um, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, like, there's lots of good it's, like, iconic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so and there's children in that one that is kind of cool and hopeful, and they're not annoying. The way that they can do children well in movies like that, I think is good, so, um,
Hard to do.
yeah, I
Yep.
sometime if I can get through the first one, I will, but I think that, 2 and 3 are definitely worth a watch. I think those are quality films there. So,
Yeah, and I plan to get back to them. I mean, they're all 5 are on Max right now, streaming. So I mean,
mhm.
definitely in the right mindset to go back and watch them. I think I'll probably watch, original Mad Max again just to like get all the way reset and then go forward. But
Sure.
planning to watch those.
Show off my couple things here. This is Mad Max Fury
Nice.
Road Steelbook. Um,
Nice.
and then I sadly, shamefully, have not yet finished the Mad Max graphic novel.
Okay.
Oh.
So
Of Fury
there's
Road?
yes, but
Sorry, I missed it.
it's not yeah, it's of Fury Road, but it's not
Okay.
retelling of Fury Road. It is it is stuff that before and of it tells of like how Emoton Joe took over the Citadel himself, that
Oh,
kind
okay.
of thing.
Mm.
And there's several
Sure.
different stories in here. There is a Furiosa story. Um, there's some stuff where we go back to like
Sure. So it's like a
it's like the
collection, just like a
yes.
short
Mhm.
story
Different
collection
artists,
kinda deal.
different
That's
yep.
fun.
It is. It's cool. I just need to finish that. So the original, well, I'll get more into that a little bit later. But first,
Mhm.
let's talk Fury Road. Andrew, which way did you watch Fury Road and then Furiosa? Right, that's what you
I
did.
did. I did,
And
yes.
Dustin,
Yeah.
obviously, that's what you did well.
Yep.
So, you guys think that is the right order? Is that the way it should be watched?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah,
like
I
it's
liked it that way.
yeah, the great thing that I've been noticing about Miller is that he's able to set scenarios and scenes and have them unfold in a way that is surprising. So like I remember
Mhm.
the first time watching Fury Road and it's like you're not quite sure what's up. You know something's going down, but then when it's finally
Mhm.
revealed that she stole the wives,
Mhm.
like that's an important payoff that you give the audience. And if you know what that is before you even go into it, it kind of deflates a little bit of
Sure.
those first 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think, watching Fury Road knowing that Furiosa was already out there, you know,
Hmm.
I I never once during Fury Road thought like, "Boy, I really need to know Furiosa's background to watch this." I definitely had thoughts, especially when like Mad Max was having, flashbacks and kind of like these visions. I definitely thought, "Oh, I really should be have watched the original trilogy because I feel like there's context here that I'm missing, even
Hmm.
though it does technically work as like a standalone." I did get that feeling sometimes where I was like, "Ooh, I feel like I would understand pieces of this just a little bit better." And I never thought that about Furiosa's character. Not that I didn't want to know more about her, but that I didn't need more in this film to understand her and, like, enjoy her character arc. Even knowing Furiosa was out there, I never thought, like, "Boy, I should have really watched that first." And then, like you said, Dustin, watching Furiosa second and then getting to the point where she steals the wives, like, that made the whole movie so much better, just, like, knowing where that came from and then but also having that have been a surprise in Fury Road. Loved that.
Hmm.
Yeah, what's interesting is I now that you say that, I had that thought as well. Like, oh, I wonder what I'm missing with Max's backstory here. The
Mhm.
thing is, to my understanding, those things are not in the previous films. Like, what is being referenced there? Because I thought like that's his kid or something. Because he loses his family,
Yep.
He
but
does, yeah,
it's not. So
right.
those flashbacks are part of what would be the next Mad Max movie, which is Max's prequel story of how
Okay.
he got to where he is in Fury Road. So that's the funny thing is like you can go back and watch the original trilogy and those you get no extra context.
Right.
This is all stuff that has not been it's been written, but it has not been filmed.
Sure.
Yep.
So, yeah, so, I mean, I just feel like even knowing that, still, like,
Yeah,
there was that feeling for me that, yeah, I mean, you're saying you're getting to, like, "Oh, I need something there," and, yeah, I didn't feel that for Furiosa. So, I feel like
Mhm.
Fury Road to Furiosa is definitely the order.
yeah.
Whereas, like, maybe I
Um,
would like an origin for Max here, previously.
sure. Um, so overall, Dustin, give me your thoughts on Fury Road. Like, how much do you love it or hate it?
Oh,
Do you like what's it mean to you? What stands out?
it's one of the few movies that I could say like no one can really pick it apart. Like it is almost, I don't think anything's perfect, but that movie is probably as close to a masterpiece of like unraveling a story in an organic way that keeps you engaged the whole time, um, and somehow still being able to be like the most epic action film I think I've ever seen, um, and have so little dialogue for like the main character, and like it
Yeah.
all just nails it. And then you watch it multiple times and you catch so many things. And everyone always praises it for the world building, of course,
Mhm.
because it's so well done. But it's like it's not world building that's like in your face. It's world building that like is sensical in the way that it's presented, and it's like, and you can piece together all this stuff, and you're not just like grasping at straws. It's all there,
Mhm.
but it's just beautifully done. Like,
Mhm.
and that I was watching the Furiosa and feeling that same thing of like
Mhm.
he just nailed it with these two films of just understanding what details to put in to
Mhm.
give you a rich second and third viewing. Like it just,
Sure.
I love it.
Mhm. Mhm.
How about you, Andrea?
Man, I don't know, standard set, gauntlet thrown, Dustin. Um, I mean,
She's here to say it sucks.
Yeah.
I hated it. Definitely not. I actually enjoyed it more than I was like I was a bit nervous going into it that I wasn't going to like it, that the opening sequence was amazing and also like frenetic and crazy, and I wasn't sure I was going to be caught up, especially with like so many kind of like visions, flashbacks happening right away. I was like, "Oh god, like I am not going to understand anything that's going on." So I was a bit apprehensive. And then yeah, as the story unfolded, like things were making sense. I still was kind of a little bit had that tug of, I wish I knew what these were about and I wish I had more context, but on the whole, really, really great film. I really enjoyed it. I loved the unfolding of the story, meeting the characters. Like you said, a lot of people inhabiting this world made a lot of sense to me. The way that, resources were clustered and kind of like mini civilizations were popping up around different things. Um, yeah, I like the simplicity of the plot. Like these women want to get out from this like basic breeding farm. They get out and plan A doesn't go the way they think. So simplest plan B. We accidentally drew everybody away from the Citadel, so let's go take it over. Like I loved it. Everything was just like simple and straightforward and like, dang, it's crazy and I don't feel like it's gonna work at all. But like, yeah, that's logical. That's simple. So I really ended up enjoying it a lot. And a lot more than I was worried about at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's one of the only people's like one of the people's criticisms of Fury Road is the simplicity of the plot. So it's like, oh, really? You just kind of drove away and then you drove back. I mean, that's
I love it. It's so like we were going to escape. The place we thought we were gonna escape to doesn't exist anymore. Like horrible and awful. What do we do now?
yeah.
They're right. Like they drew everybody away from the Citadel. Go take it over.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to the Empire podcast today, kind of talk about a little bit, and they were saying how it's Fury Road is such a character driven story. It really is about the characters and how they interact and stuff like that. And Furiosa is really kind of the opposite. It's more more plot driven. And
Mhm.
I think that's true. I think that's what sells it, and it is impressive how right there's so little dialogue, so
Mhm.
many things have to be done, you know, via just looks from one to
Mhm.
another. And I mean, if you look at any of the backstory of this, like Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy did not get on well during the shooting in this
Mhm.
movie. People had real issues with like, what are we doing? What is happening right now? Because I guess the
Mhm.
way it's shot is very like Anya Taylor Joy was talking about this. Like, look over your shoulder, cut. You know, jump up in a seat, cut. And they're like, she needed to see it pieced together then to see that this is working. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. So there was sort of apologies after Fury Road came out by some of the cast.
sure.
Like, we
Mhm.
just needed to trust George that he knew what he was doing, more because they were
That can
getting
be really
frustrated with
hard
it.
though.
Yeah.
That can be really
Mhm.
hard. I could see it, like, in my own very limited acting experience, that could be very difficult to have such short shots and know that these, like, fleeting moments are really coming together to tell a story. I
Yeah.
I absolutely understand how that could be very wearing after a while, and these are not, like, short movies. So I
Yeah.
get how, like, I'm sure it was just, like, a million small takes that you were just like, "What are we even doing? We're not, like, telling a story here."
Mhm.
Yeah, you're just
You're
like
interrupting
they're just
the
like
flow.
driving the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
one we spend 2 weeks on this action sequence to go and spend 2 weeks on the next action sequence. Like, what is So
Yeah.
I totally get that, but that kind of makes it amazing how it really does
Yeah.
piece together. I
Mhm.
think the flow of this film is really great. Pacing is there. I think that it straddles well the whole like surrealism
Mhm.
elements of like going into a giant dust storm sort of thing and the craziness of that
Awesome.
with something that's just way, like realistic and dirty. Um, it's it's a film like nothing else. Really
Mhm.
don't there is no other thing like this. And if you're, not into something kind of zany and over the top like these crazy villains and stuff, I can see some people being turned off
Love it.
by it. But yeah, it's just wholly original. It is, I think, a movie that will stand the test of time.
Mhm.
Its characters are, um, they're not, I've listened to George Miller talk a lot now about archetypes and trying to, find those kind of archetypes that kind of resonate with people. And I think that the characters in this will manage that. And the score by Junkie XL
Mm.
is really good as well. It's
Mhm.
just the rising, like swelling kind of orchestra that comes in some of the most dramatic moments is great. And
Mhm.
then the way that the music is even incorporated literally in space in the movie with the Doof Warrior and like riding and playing guitar
Yeah.
on,
Oh, I love
like
it.
it's
New age radio. That's the way to do it. Absolutely. I'm gonna carry a guitarist around just, like, banging heavy metal out wherever I go.
Mhm.
they get slowed down and his rhythm gets real slow as they're getting
Yeah.
stopped up and
I
um
love it.
yeah,
That was
it's
excellent.
it's it's one of my favorites. I think it's when in the if I have a conversation of best action movies, this has to be in that
In it.
conversation for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, 2 comments I wanna piggyback off of. Villains. I loved the costuming for Immortan Joe.
mm,
Loved it. My note was he is an amazing cross between, like, Beetlejuice and Darth Vader. Like,
Mhm.
I absolutely just,
Immortan
loved
Joe,
that.
Immortan Joe, Immortan Joe.
He
Oh,
was
Immortan Joe.
great. He looked awesome, and he totally had, like, the commanding presence, but it was
Mhm.
like but he was still, like, sickly but strong. I don't know. Just all
Yeah.
the, like, weird dichotomies I just thought came together amazingly in that character. Um, and then on your note about action, I really loved the action sequences in this, and I especially loved, when so many things got blown up, but I loved the explosions, and I loved when people got killed, there was like a somehow a graceful yet realistic way that bodies moved in the air and, like were thrown about and then fell to the ground. I don't know why, but I just thought like, yeah, that looks great.
You're sick,
And
Andrea.
I know
Yeah.
I feel so irreverent for saying that, but it looked so good. There is something about like being taken out of an action sequence that is going really well when something doesn't fit. When like a
Yeah.
fight sequence gets too weird or like bodies are moving and you're like, they would not do this. And I don't
Mhm.
Yeah.
know. There was just something about this where like bodies were being flown through the air. And I was like, yeah, that's the way that would happen. It looks beautiful but real.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
kudos.
Yeah. I think my biggest issue with the film is honestly there is, and look, happens all the time in movies now, but when Max crashes in the sandstorm, he basically ragdolls like nobody's business. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you're in the sand, but you're still dead. Like you're still dead. Did we have to be that extreme with him
Yeah.
like getting whipped all over the place as the car crashes? It's like
I had that
clean
note
that up.
in, Furiosa when that, like, rocket explodes right on the bank for her, and then she,
Beneath
like,
her.
tumbles down and then gets buried underneath a motorcycle, and she gets up and she's like, "I'm fine." And I
Yeah.
was like, "No, no, I'm sorry. No, thank you."
Mhm.
So, yeah, there is a little bit of stretching that you have to do, I think, with some of
Mhm.
the action sequences to believe that people are gonna be okay. Um
Yep.
I mean, earlier in the film, Max, acts as a blood bag and somehow, like, even though he's like giving Nux all of this blood, he like gets around and like has a whole fight sequence and like lifts him on his shoulders and like runs for like half a mile to get to the and I'm like, no, come on now.
He's drinking a
So
lot of orange juice. You just didn't see it.
he's
Yeah.
gotten a lot of those cookies, as
Yeah.
snacks that you
Yeah.
get, a lot of fruit snacks. Yeah, I was like, okay, like, a little bit there, but it wasn't like I was taken out of the whole movie. It was just kind of like a stray, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
he's pretty
I was
spry
always
for
like, well,
giving
I don't know how
giving
much
that much
blood he's
blood.
actually given,
I
Like, it's not like you're
yeah,
filling up bags, you're, like, connected to another being that
right.
probably has a
I
lot of
know.
blood
So
in them yet, but
it
yeah,
is ambiguous, but still I
yeah,
was like, ooh.
It's one of those things that I've found now that if the rest of the movie is going so well that I'm on board, my brain starts filling in the reasons why that wouldn't
Sure.
be as preposterous. It's like I'm gonna let this slide because everything else
Yeah.
is so great, and then, but in a lesser film, I would point to that and be like, "Well, that's dumb."
yeah,
Yeah. And I think my brain was kind of on the same trajectory in the sense that I noted it and was like, but I moved past it. Whereas like in a lesser
yeah.
film, I would note it and just like really be stuck,
Yep.
So like I could do both in this movie, like be like, probably improbable, but too good to really let it stay with me.
Yep.
I used it as, like, well, okay, he's a little weakened from that, and then he's against a group in that fight for the reason he didn't just like crush Charlize Theron immediately. One arm Charlize
Sure.
Theron. So it's like
Sure.
they made an interesting fight with that. Like he's got chain on his
Mhm.
face. He's weakened. He's got multiple people he's dealing with. Like Nux is through the door and the thing. Like it's just a complicated sort of mess.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So yeah. Um. Okay. We have to talk about. I know this is. I feel bad because it's feeling very it's rushed. I could talk a lot
Yeah.
about Fury Road. We could still add some things in here, but we should also
I
get
do
in. Um,
I do want to get to
Furiosa.
one thing in Fury Road because I really loved like Nux's character trajectory, his
yeah,
storyline, and the way that like in the beginning everybody I was just like, "Oh my god, you're so dumb." Being like, "Witness!" Like it was
Mhm.
such a dumb like thing, and so often like it wasn't dumb in the sense of like I didn't enjoy it, but like oftentimes it was for dumb stuff that they would just be
Yeah.
like, "Witness me!" And then at the end, like his whole character shift that he went through and his like break from believing in Morton Joe was like the best thing ever and worth, any amount of sacrifice. And then he ended up sacrificing himself for something real that he was like trying to protect and be connected to. And
Hmm.
just the way that he said, witness me in his final moments when he was protecting the girls. I really was actually struck
Yeah.
like, hey, you turned something that was like really dumb into something really meaningful and beautiful. And, that final witness me
Okay.
was really great.
Two things on that. One, yes, the final witness me is emotional, and it's like with that
It was
music and the way they
beautiful.
film the truck, it's
Perfect
all
music.
great.
Loved it.
Second, dumb, how dare you? Witness me is
No.
awesome. That was like a cultural thing at the time. It was like when I was in the field this last year, when I had to pick up a really big rock to no one, I'm like, "Witness!" And I picked up the rock. So it's
uh,
I think it's really awesome. I think it like this symbolizes like
I
V8.
I
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
get it and I like it.
I never caught that.
I just
mhm.
thought like, during all the times they would say witness, it was just like for every little thing, they'd be like, shifting around like
Yeah.
witness. I was like, oh my God, I get it.
No,
And
you
then
watch it
and
again,
then
Andrea. You see all the scenes where it's
no.
like
I
jumping off with two things to their death,
Yes.
I
like
love it because it's the perfect
That's
kind of
Furiosa.
like that wasn't Furiosa, yes, but well,
Yes.
he
And
did it. He did
that
it in
was
the Fury
baller.
Road too. I think
yeah.
Yeah.
he
I
he
mean,
jumped on one of the spark
yeah.
guys, the buzzards.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I meant the one
Yeah.
in Furiosa. I like that one better. But yeah, so I get it and it was cool, but also like I just made all the other ones seem stupid, I think, once like Nux did his and it was like really beautiful and meaningful.
I
I
felt
was like,
like it
that's amazing.
perfectly illustrated the idea of a fanatic ideology of like
Yeah, no, it totally did.
they nailed it where it's just like they're all just itching to die. They just want to
Yes.
die because they've been told that everything's going to be better from there if they just die
Right.
in such
Yeah.
a good way. And I just love how when someone dies and does something that I would consider epic in real life, then someone's like mediocre.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
just
that's why I say it's like totally, totally dumb. And then they do it for every small thing because it is
yeah.
this like fanaticism. It is this like ideology. And they're like,
Hmm.
everything I do is like, witness. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna do it.
But it's just for
Um,
some old man
right,
who doesn't even know that they exist, and then at the
right.
end, it's the it's the
Ooh,
best switch
great death.
from meaningless to meaningful.
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. I totally agree. And yeah, great death for Morton Joe. I really enjoyed that face
Mhm.
mangling.
Mhm.
It is good.
Yes.
But when we get to Furiosa, I do have a question on that.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
that's a good switch over.
Yeah, Furiosa, I have to show off my popcorn bucket.
Ooh,
Yeah, my
Oh,
Furiosa popcorn bucket.
nice.
Mhm, mhm. I did get the matching cup, but I used it too much. It's worn out. Didn't last very well. Had to throw it away. So popcorn bucket, I like never use it. I never use a popcorn. When am I gonna use a popcorn bucket like this?
you have as a mini trash can. I don't know.
I did think about that. Yeah, did think about that. So, okay, Furiosa. So, to my understanding, for a little like context here,
hmm
the movie was supposed to be Mad Max Fury Road, along with some surrounding products. One being a graphic novel,
hmm
two being a video game, which was out, but George Miller kind of wanted more involvement in, I guess. And the
Oh, okay.
third was an animated movie, an anime specifically movie about Furiosa. And
Oh,
it's
I did
kind of
not know that.
because they had to write in order for Charlize to understand her character and all this sort of thing, they had to write the backstory of Furiosa. So she knew
Yeah,
that.
this was like
She kind of
done.
yeah. She kinda
Yeah.
wanted to I guess at one point, Charlize Theron asked, like, "Can we just shoot Furiosa then first?" I was like, "No, we're doing Fury Road." So, um, yeah. I don't know if that changes anything for me.
Mm.
I'll just say up top, I kind of wish this had been an anime, like, and released
Mm.
closer, much closer to when Fury Road came out.
Hmm,
So,
interesting.
yeah.
I will say that I feel like this is the way to do a prequel. Whereas
Yeah.
most of the time, somebody comes up with a movie, has some kind of like vague backstory in their mind, and then they decide, hey, all right, this was successful enough, let's go back and make that thing. And they try and
Mhm.
like retrofit how things
Mhm.
work and whatever. And the mere fact that he had this already known and understood is
Yeah.
why it fits so perfectly with it, because he didn't have
Right.
to
Agreed.
retcon anything.
Mhm.
It all made sense as to why she knew what she knew because of the progression that she had. Um,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed it when we first watched it, but
Mhm.
watching it a second time, really, it went up on the list for me because everything was
Sure.
just like, ah, I love these movies, and it's weird because I'm not like a big like car nut or anything. Like
Mhm.
cars are cool, but I'm not like super into them. But these are the movies that I'm just like, I get it. I see why like
Mhm.
machinery and all this stuff is so awesome.
And they
Mhm.
make it all. They just make it all. Like,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
vehicles and the bikes and stuff is just, like that's incredible to me. They
Mm-hmm.
said in like,
It's a
when they're
perfect still to come up right now.
yeah, it's just they were saying on this one, like, everything has to be recycled because this is the
Yep.
wasteland.
Yeah.
Why would so it all has to be from and so, like, looking at the detail they put on everything and the teeth and I don't know. I think that
Mhm.
it's incredible, the craftsmanship and the, yeah, motor working that, is for these films, and there is, like, Mad Max, like, I don't know, Wasteland Celebration or something
Mhm.
every year or whatever, and people bring their, like,
Oh,
custom made and modified kinda wasteland cars and stuff like that, things with spikes,
that's
whatever.
super
So,
cool.
Love it.
yeah. Mhm. Andrea, how about you? What do you think of Furiosa?
I enjoyed it. I I was again a little bit nervous kind of starting out looking at the runtime. I was like, oh boy, like I'm
Mhm.
not sure 2.5 hours I'm gonna be engaged in all of it. And I think there was like kind of one fleeting moment where I felt like a little long, and then I got like right back into it. So really, it was not as big an issue as I worried it was. Yeah, I really enjoyed this film. Again, something that where I knew the outcome, and I didn't feel like anything was shoehorned in or forced to get there. Like everything felt like a very natural progression. There were like I think maybe one or two more quibbles that I had with Furiosa, in terms of like logic and a little bit more noticing the improbability of like everybody being like such a great marksman. And just sort of being like,
Incredible marksman.
yeah, just
Absolutely
like
incredible.
out of this world,
Moving
insanely
target,
good.
you know,
Just yeah,
5
right.
feet
They're
away.
moving, you're moving, one shot, yeah, again, there were like a couple bit of more moments where I was like, whoopsie, like this is taking me out of it a little bit. But still, like overall, really thought like everything fit in this wheelhouse, this world, this character. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, I like Dustin liked it more on the second viewing. I
Sure.
still liked it out of the theater, but I was going into it thinking, okay, I don't want this to be just like Fury Road. I hope it's not too samey to Fury Road. And then I see it, and there's elements that are there. It's like, oh, we're doing road combat again and stuff like that, but it just doesn't feel as impactful. But watching it again, kind of knowing what it is, it
Mhm.
really is very different. Like, we have the one kind
Mhm.
of convoy scene that is
Mhm.
what basically a whole of Fury Road is, and so we get
Mhm.
to this we get to see the kind of things that, Furiosa has to do and go through, so
Right, the
she's
experience,
familiar
yeah.
with it. Yeah, she
Mhm.
has that kind of knowledge. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that the actors do really well. I think it's kind of a shame that Anya Taylor-Joy gets, like, all the coverage here when she's in half the movie, and then it's, like, younger, other ladies,
Yeah.
the other half of it. But, no, I don't know. I think my biggest issue is probably still some CG that just looks a little
Mm,
too wrong in here, a little
sure.
too fake something. I think some of it has to do with, like, odd timing for cutting frames. They sort of did this thing in Fury Road where the editor, she took and, like, would chop out some frames to make things feel more frenetic, and,
Mm,
it's kind of an interesting effect or whatever that I don't normally see in things other than, like, a horror movie to make people look disjointed or something, but, I
mhm.
feel like it was maybe abused in this one or in times
Sure.
that it's not beneficial, and so it makes, like, a vehicle that was probably just driving there even look fake, and then times when vehicles are something is fake, I don't know, but
Mm,
Hmm.
some of
sure.
that, and then story-wise, there's one thing that bothered me,
Mm.
I think they really needed a scene to show Immortan Joe's displeasure at Furiosa being gone.
Hmm.
He
But
part of the
yeah,
bargain was that he was getting her, she was
right.
the other
Agreed.
and then she gets away, and
And
then
nobody does
immediately
anything.
her and yeah, we don't like, so I
Yeah.
just think that, we needed as long as the movie was, we need to cut something else out so we can have a scene of Morton Joe, like, "What the hell just happened?" You know?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was one of my, like, taking out moments afterwards, like, obviously, Rictus sort of, like, thinks about her and sort of at one point is, like, almost onto her, but it's like everybody else
Yeah.
just, like, forgot that she was there.
Yeah.
And, like, how? And then also this, like, random girl shows up later, and they're all just like, "Yeah, this girl is," like, she goes to the trouble of, like, shaving her head and pretending to be a boy for so long, and then suddenly she just, like, lets her hair grow out and everybody's cool with it. And I was a little
Did
like,
she didn't
"Hey."
shave her head, did she?
Well, yeah, 'cause
Oh,
she
for the
sha
Uh,
wig. Yeah, yeah,
she
not.
yeah,
saved her
for doing the
yeah, she
wig.
shaved her
Oh,
head
so
for the wig to get away from Rictus,
Yeah,
and then she, like, put a hat on and pretended to be a boy, and I was like,
yeah.
"Why in the world, if you went to that much trouble to pretend to be a boy because you knew it was dangerous to be a girl, wouldn't you keep shaving your head?"
I
That didn't
Mhm.
I'm
make sense to
yeah.
me that she grew out her hair and everybody was suddenly cool with her being a girl.
I'm guessing it was just, like, the passage of ti for most people, time passed, bigger things to concern, they just didn't remember, but for
I
Morton
guess.
Joe, maybe, be, like, a little more
Right. Like, he
again, where
just, like,
he's the one that
accepted a
cared.
girl there somehow, you know?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was a little strange to me. That was a little bit of an odd, misstep in the plot. Not big, but just sort of enough to make me go,
yeah.
"Why didn't you?"
Yeah.
And I felt like it was later to make her final revenge transformation and hair shave more dramatic, but I didn't need that. I didn't need that extra drama.
Sure.
I would
I
have preferred the logical, keep shaving your head.
I really
Yep.
enjoyed the part where, it's the midpoint sequence where the convoy is getting attacked and
Mhm,
she's underneath and like her whole getaway plan is kind of foiled. Um and she's in her full get up so like you can't even see
mhm,
her face or anything, and as things keep progressing and she has to get more and more involved just to stay alive, um she's removing more parts of her
mhm.
costume, and then like it's burning hot, so she has to take her hat off to
Yeah.
like be able to pick up the really hot thing to put on the radiator. And I understand where you're coming from because I also agree to a certain degree, but I also love the idea of like this person that no one ever knew and was just always like
Yeah,
covered, all of a sudden is forced to reveal that she is a girl
sure.
to uh
And
Trader Jack.
Jack.
sh
Mhm.
yeah, Praetorian Jack, yeah.
Praetorian Jack, yeah.
So I totally would have gotten that. I sort of, envisioned the same, basic reveal in a, like, Mulan sense. Where, like,
Sure.
she would have shaved her head because that's the obvious move because, your hair gives it away, but then she, like, has to remove her shirt to do the same thing, and there's, like, bindings there, but you can still tell, like, hey, genetically, she's a girl. So in that sense, I think that would have made more sense to me than, like, not shaving her head felt careless in a way
Sure.
that I for someone so, like, planful and thoughtful, felt a little bit odd to me.
Sure.
That's fair.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. My biggest thing was mostly with Immortan Joe not noticing her. Later, I agree. I like that the kind of reveal, and then when she's older, I'm like, once she sort of to me has the protection of Jack. You
Yep.
know, it's like, hey, she's on my team.
That's what I thought.
So you're gonna leave her be because we see that, if you're like like Furiosa in Fury Road, she has pull, they
Mhm.
can do what they want. And the whole party of people, like I'm in charge. And
Yeah.
so the reveal
I get
later to
that.
me is like, I mean, I can still be like, I can still see someone being like, where are you you know, where'd you
Yeah,
come from?
like, it
But
just sort of I get that, like, from, like, the War Boys in general or, like, maybe some lesser people, Praetorian Jack would have been like, "She's with me." But, yeah, again, Immortan Joe would have been like, "Hey, she's kinda pretty, like, maybe I'm gonna make her one of my wives." Like, I don't know, maybe there's a scene where it's, like, a little push and pull because she's a girl and he
Mhm.
just,
Mhm.
wants, like, a fine specimen,
Yeah.
for a wife to give him a good son, and he's like, "Yeah, I got Praetorian Jack, like, you don't need to do any more driving." So,
Yeah, or
again,
something to
there's
give
just
us, like, context, like, if Jack like, how much they have how much pull they do have,
exactly,
how much
exactly,
does
some
Joe
context
really
there.
value
Yeah.
them that they're like,
Mhm.
"No," whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that
some
that
context
kind
there,
of
some reaction.
to go back a little bit on Immortan Joe, and we needed a scene of him like reacting to her disappearance.
Mhm.
Um, the thing that
He
I
was so
was,
excited about her being a full life.
yeah, the thing I was alluding to in Fury Road is that when she kills him, she right before she hooks him, she goes, "Remember me?"
Mm,
and then kills him. And I always assumed that that was gonna be something that kind of got revealed, and I'm still trying to piece together exactly what it is. Like, of course, he remembers her as as
right,
Furiosa, but
right.
Right.
His
but
imperator.
was that in a reference to like when she was little, of like her saying
Sure,
like, "Hey, I was that little girl." But
sure.
that might be a stretch because that there's not much to go on there. So I've always been curious about that line, if that was just something they
Mhm.
did address, but then it just kind of didn't make it in the movie, or if it just kind of
Yeah.
got glossed
That
over.
does feel a little flat considering her final, you know, confrontation with Dementis in Furiosa. That feels so much more like,
Mm.
remember me, and it lands because they have so much history together, and yeah, it doesn't quite get the impact because yeah, Morton Joe bartered for her and wanted to make her a wife, but really didn't make her life a hell the way that, like, Dementis
Right.
did, So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Hmm.
guess, but maybe they thought it was gonna land better, and it just, kinda ended up not.
I mean, it always seemed like in Fury Road that it was one of those things where it's alluding to a backstory that
Mhm.
makes it powerful in that moment when you're like, "Oh, there's got to be something there."
Yeah.
And but now that we've seen that backstory,
It's a good question. It's a
Mhm.
good question. I mean, to me, it makes sense to be referencing like, "Hey, do you remember me as actually me as a kid?" That sort of thing.
Mhm.
hmm
But why would he recognize you now?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, it was if this or something that was done that but I just rewatched this. I should have caught this to begin with.
Mhm.
I don't
He,
know. That's
he
gonna
should
burn me out.
he should re-release Fury Road just like Lucas did, and just like add in some changes of dialogue just for that one spot. Remember me,
Yeah.
the little girl?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Remember
Yeah.
me, the full life?
Mm.
Mhm.
Or he'll say what?
All
Oh man, I forgot. What's what does that guy say right before Han Solo shoots him? That in the last one, he just says like some weird. All right,
Oh,
I've already failed.
you
yeah.
Like
mean
the last version that they
you mean
released.
Greedo?
Yeah,
In
Greedo.
the
Yeah, he says some kind of weird thing in
well,
the.
Alan says McClunky.
Yeah, much
That's a
something that was
threat.
never
And
in any of the versions, and then all of a sudden when it came out on Disney Plus, like that
oh, really?
was added in right before he was shot.
That's random.
And it just made no sense, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever because it's like there's so much messing with that scene to every fan's chagrin that it was great to just have one last thing to kind of screw with that scene once it went to Disney.
Just a nail in the
I I
coffin.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen this. I'm gonna have to watch it.
Now I'm gonna have to edit that part of Fury Road where she just goes
She just says
Clunky.
McClunky. Yeah.
McClunky. Oh god.
That's good. Okay, well, that's really maybe there'll be an answer in my comic or something like that. I gotta read that.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
see.
Oh yeah,
I
tell me
shouldn't
if
have
You
to
there
do
is.
let
that
us
homework,
know.
but yeah. Um, this movie is really it's part of what I was missing in the theater, I think, is because it was such a vital part of Fury Road, is the music. This movie has very little music.
Yep.
And for a long I was, listening to some interviews with Junkie XL, they talked about how that's like it's really not a traditional score in any means. We were trying to keep all humanity out of it, get be as daring as we could in getting to the most basic. Like restraint was our key thing here.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they really it's like it's trying to show how little humanity there is to keeping
Mhm.
melodies and harmonies out. So when
Mhm.
you get that, it's like a little like Jack and Furiosa are like saving each other or something. And you get a
Yeah.
little bit, some strings come in, and then but
Mhm.
otherwise it's just like bwomp,
Yeah.
bwomp, in these certain moments, there's like it's really, really interesting. And it's on a second rewatch, it is surprisingly, um, I don't know, it's just I'm not used to it. A lot of movies fill space with music,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
it music can make a mediocre scene better, a lot better,
Mhm.
Yep.
more emotional, whatever. And so they don't have any of those crutches here to
Mhm.
lean on.
That's
They just
interesting.
Mhm.
I really didn't even notice that there was less music watching it.
oh,
I
it's
noticed I
minimum,
noticed the
minimal.
moments at the bullet farm where it's the music is really coming
Yeah.
from Furiosa's perspective because he tells her to go and then
Mhm.
he starts like driving into danger, and usually when the hero like revs up and starts driving into danger, that's when the music pumps up, but it was kind of waiting until
Yeah,
she finally made that decision that she was going to turn around and go back for him. And I
Yep.
thought that was a really
because
nice
when
way
there's
to play
emotion,
that.
there's like that's a human thing. It's the connection now. That's what made Dementis so upset about like he's like, "There is no hope," or whatever. But it's as soon as like Jack and her were showing like a connection, they had been captured and everything. It's like, no, we got to pull them apart. How dare you? So it's anytime there's
Right.
like a human connection there, a bond or whatever, you get some more music. But otherwise,
Hmm.
it's really like,
Mhm.
they did, I guess, this technique. I didn't notice it so much, but I heard him talking about it. They worked on doing it's developed, I think, in the 50s. And it's this thing where basically you start low and you start rising, and then another one starts low and starts rising, and so it
Mm,
makes this feeling of it's continually building and rising, but you're never peaking, because by
yep.
the time something peaks and starts over again, everything else
I've
another set is
overwritten it. Yep.
yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure.
I I used to know the term for that, and it's what uh, Nolan used in Dunkirk like a ton to
Mm.
have
Shepherd tone,
constantly,
yep, that's
yep,
what Alan Parrish showed you.
constantly
Oh.
rising tension that never seems
Mhm.
to reach its end.
Mhm.
And yeah, that is a super interesting technique that our ears aren't able to like separate out those elements.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know what an illusion would be for the eyes. I don't know what a similar effect would be for the ears. Ear
Yeah.
illusion or something.
Yeah.
But
Coin it right now. Add it to the
yeah.
dictionary.
Mhm.
Can I just say
Yeah.
that I absolutely love that in a movie that is like nonstop crazy action most of the time. Um, I love that the climax of this film is just the protagonist and the antagonist, just like arguing philosophies. Like,
Hmm.
I love that. Like, it builds up, and they do give you like when she's chasing him down, like they give you enough
Mhm.
action to make it feel satisfying. But then in
Mhm.
the end, it's just like him him debating hope versus hatred, and
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
it's so
He's
good.
someone that's just given into the wasteland, you know? He's just
Hmm.
given, he's taken the easy route here. He's had everything stolen from him, all kinds of trauma in his past. And he just went like, look, this is the way to survive, and I can be good at this
Hmm.
and, you know, forego my humanity because what has hope ever got me? And yeah, like he, as outlandish of a character as Dementis is, he is believable totally in this existence as well.
Oh
So, and
yeah.
I really like listening to the
Mhm.
backstory stuff on this too. Like, I guess Chris Hemsworth didn't know where he was going with the character exactly, and he started taking a journal as Dementis. He started keeping a journal,
Hmm.
and that kind of helped him sort of start finding who the character was, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, and the teddy
Yeah.
empathizing
bear.
with his trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Dustin, I really enjoyed too the, back and forth, because I think, of their, like, final kind of, encounter slash battle with each other. And I use that loosely because, it's really like a battle of wits and minds and,
Hmm.
language versus, like, physical brawl. Because I think that was part of, like, Dementis's appeal as a leader. He was such a good orator, and he was always
Hmm.
talking and, like, talking his way into, people doing things or, following him or, I mean, yeah, he had like physical power, sure. But we most often saw him speaking. And that was how he was
Mhm.
like, persuading people to follow him or do what he wanted or whatever. Um, and so I thought it was like a great like engagement that way. But then also for Furiosa to just be like, I understand who you are, so I'm gonna take that away and,
Hmm.
render him unable to speak as punishment for him and then be like, "Okay, well, this is his ultimate punishment for him. What's my ultimate punishment for me?" And I loved the running through of, like, the different scenarios, which each of which would have been, like, just and poetic, and then rolling into something I did not see coming, which was,
Yep.
like, taking her precious seed and making a freaking Dementis tree. That was bomb. I did not that was total surprise. I loved it. I loved
Hmm.
it. It was beautiful and poetic and amazing and full circle and, like, we got the, like, continual hints of her, like, pulling the seed out of where she was storing it in her hair, and so I feel like I should have seen it coming, but I totally didn't, and it was amazing. Amazing.
I just wanna say, I hope she's telling those other wives where that fruit's coming from that she is feeding them. By the way,
This
This
grew
is
out of
people
my
fruit.
arch nemesis's crotch tree.
Yep, yep. Oh, I loved it. That was,
Yeah. And
amazing.
and I feel like that is also signature of why I love these films is that
Sure.
it takes it just a step above what you're expecting or what you've
Mhm.
seen before, and it gives you something new for you to
Yeah.
think about or to see. like I just love the part where that guy is flying with the giant octopus parachute
Tentacles.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like oh man, that was
And
so
then it
cool.
gets like on the back of the war rig and then it also
Yeah.
like kind of flares out. Oh,
Yeah,
visually that is gorgeous.
yep.
Yes.
I love that
Although
scene.
although practically I did have a moment where I was like, God, that's like so much extra material. They're already like resource challenged. Like so many people could have made clothes or blankets or tents or whatever out of that.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous and amazing and also like, damn.
But the fear he instills, you know, you
No,
need that
I
street cred in the wasteland
again,
as
I
well.
totally on the one hand, I totally get like the hoarding for, the big bosses and all of that, and they get the extra stuff and the perks and all of that, and yet
Mhm,
somehow also I
mhm.
my brain was like, so many people. So
Um, okay. I mean, that, that felt pretty speedy, but we are at 10:30 now,
yes.
30 minutes later than I was hoping. It's my fault. We gotta, like, just I don't care what you were watching last week, guys. We're right into Mad Max, like, but well, we should do sometime if you guys end up watching, like, rewatching or watching Mad Max 1, 2, or 3, should
Yeah.
do, just a podcast live and just sit on and talk about those and more Mad Max. Just wanted to get this out there. Furiosa bombed in the theater terribly. I'm hoping that it does
It's
well on
recovered.
streaming and some people buy it on physical copies and that kind of thing. There's a collection of all the movies coming out in a couple months, I
Mhm.
think, on 4K and stuff. That's pretty cool. So,
Did it bomb
yeah.
ratings wise early on? Because it's definitely if
No,
so, it's definitely recovered.
nope.
Or
Ratings
okay,
have
if
always been consistent. It's just
okay.
budget, money wise.
Sure.
So,
Sure, sure, sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, and I heard him on the Empire podcast too. It's like somehow George Miller talked studios into letting him film this like art house niche film, but that's super big budget because
Yeah.
it's extreme, it's violent, it's crazy, it's not it. I I mean,
Yeah. Unlike with other big budget
your
movies, I
spouse,
really feel like
Dustin,
yeah,
I mean,
I really feel
she's
like
probably
this was money well
yeah.
spent. Like, this is crazy. Do you know what I mean?
Uh,
Like, there are
yeah.
other movies where I can see, like, budget bloating and, like, "Oh my god, like, this is what you got for that amount of money," and here, I'm just like, "Money well spent." I think it looks fabulous.
Yeah, I mean the Acolyte was 180 million, and that looked like half of the season was filmed in like a like a stage play. And
Yeah.
this is just I don't know. Everything about this movie is visually striking and
Yeah.
Yes.
awesome.
I mean, this shot right here on the screen, if you see it,
Yeah.
I just like the way they really focus on
Oh,
Furiosa's
yeah.
eyes a lot. So there's some, yeah,
Yeah, this is Bullet
good
Town,
times.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. This was good.
Yep. And then I really, Alan posted a while ago, there is a blood and chrome. There's a black and white edition of Fury Road. And I
Ooh.
almost watched it this last time. I just, the color is, it, it's such a part of the movie to me. Like I can't
Yeah.
envision it being as effective in black and white, but I
I
do
can't
need to try
either.
it. So,
I
I've
can't
got to
either,
see
just,
it.
like, atmospherically, I just really noted, like, the primary colors, like, the yellows of the wasteland, but then the reds when we got into the sandstorm, and then the deep, deep blue of the night, like,
mhm,
they're real mood setters and, like, tonal
yeah.
shifts, like, the action that happens in Fury Road at night is just as intense, but it's muted in a way that really
Mhm.
fits, like, the blues. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could watch it in black and white, that
I
seems really
mean,
strange.
I do love the color of these films. The almost elevated kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
saturation. But there is something to be said about, just the beauty. And they, from all accounts I've heard, the blood and chrome version, like they didn't they made sure it's not just okay, we just took out the color. They made sure to
Sure.
pump up like the values and things to make sure that like it read
Sure.
well as a black and white. And it's like when you take out an element, not that it was like noise, but if you take it out, like
Mhm.
it almost provides it in a purer form of being able to see like
Mhm.
okay, like the picture of Furiosa where like the light is streaming across her eyes. Like
Mhm.
that's easy to miss when you're viewing it, and you probably miss it while you're watching it in black and white as well too. Um, but it'd be easier for those details to kind of stand out on
Sure.
their own when it's you're only taking in value and not hue and
Yeah.
saturation.
Sure.
I get it. I mean, like
I say that
moments of
without having watched it though.
yeah, no, I
I would like to.
mhm.
I just gave a big speech about how great it is, and I haven't even seen it.
It
I'm going to.
All right.
was very convincing. It was very convincing. Well done.
Mhm. All right. Well, I'm sorry we couldn't have a little longer discussion on Mad Max. Like you say, if anyone feels compelled, just jump on sometime. We can talk more about it, especially if we done any more rewatches or something like that. Let me know. If any of you out there are interested in seeing that, let us know. Otherwise, in the meantime, make sure you follow, like, share, subscribe in all the places. We're on podcast directories. We're on, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, just podcast on the rocks. We're live right now on Kick and Twitch and YouTube. Hopefully, we'll be back on X soon. And so, any of those places are great as well. We'd love your comments and your feedback. So, probably, I need to do a podcast live myself really soon. I have a stack of comic books next to me to review, so that should be coming quickly or soon, I would hope. And then we got lots of anime to talk about soon. Probably the
Mhm.
Terminator anime. People are sounding like they
Mhm.
like it, so that one, My Happy Marriage. Once Andrew and I finish that up, we can talk about that. And then,
Yeah.
yeah. So stay tuned. Dustin, thank you very much for joining us, being back.
Yay.
We
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much for
Dustin.
having me back. I love
Absolutely.
talking films, so this is right up my alley.
Great. All right. Well, until next time, everyone, thanks for joining us. Andrea, thanks for being here as always. And
Oh, of
we'll see you
course.
next time.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.